I know that calling shrooms a performance-enhancing drug sounds absolutely insane to most people. However, in recent times, people have been taking what they call a microdose of psilocybin mushrooms or other psychedelic drugs to do a lot more than just enhance their performance.
People are using psilocybin these days in what they call microdosing, taking very small doses and seeing these profound benefits.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm aware of is kickboxers are using it. And kickboxers are using it, and a good buddy of mine is using it, who says that he can see things happen before they happen. It's almost like he's reading people's minds before they're about to do something.
In fact, microdosing has been building a lot more in popularity lately. As such, I do feel that it's my responsibility to make this video to outline some of the potential dangers and risks involved, primarily because all these people who are ranting and raving about how great it is and how it's just the best Adderall replacement, well, they tend to kind of just go way too much to one side, and they don't always have the most balanced view to share, and people watch this and they get influenced. And part of the reason that recently it's become more popular is because a lot of people in Silicon Valley have talked about it, and they said they used it to, increase their performance. And whenever somebody who's in an area that makes a shit ton of money says that something helped them increase their performance and work better, well, the entire world goes, oh my god, so I can use small doses of acid or mushrooms to make more money? Let me in on this secret. I want to make more money. According to YouTube's own community guidelines shown here, videos which intend to educate but do not glorify substance use are generally suitable for advertising. The following video does not glorify the use of drugs, is also not graphic since it does not show the consumption of any illegal substances. The following video is strictly educational. Oh, and if you enjoyed the trippy visual effects during the intro, head on over to our Patreon page and show your support. These were just basic effects done by me, but when we hit the next goal on Patreon and I hire an actual animator, these effects are going to get way better. Now, what I'm also going to be doing is comparing the effects of microdosing shrooms to taking the more, traditional focus-enhancing medications such as Vyvanse or Adderall, basically amphetamines, and being someone who is prescribed amphetamines currently, and also someone who experimented with microdosing in the past, I believe that I would be able to share with you guys a very unique perspective on it, at least an accurate perspective as to what it was like for me. And yeah, let's get into this. What microdosing is taking very small threshold level doses of a psychedelic compound to give the user a performance boost. There is a very large range of different effects that are possible for a person to experience, and which effects someone experiences, I believe, largely depends on the person. I mean, every drug affects every person in a different way. However, some of the commonly noted effects are things like an increase in creativity, an increase in focus. They can feel a heightened sense of mental clarity, like their thoughts are just, going smoother, everything's clicking faster, and it's almost as if they are a slightly improved version of themselves. Of course, that's in the most ideal and best scenarios. It would be a huge stretch to assume that these effects are going to happen to everyone who tries a microdose. Not to mention, a lot of these guides online will tell you that there's no difference between any of the compounds. I mean, you can microdose any psychedelic with the same effects, and that is something that, having tried microdosing several psychedelics, I highly disagree with. It's just common sense, right? I mean, if I'm going to trip on shrooms, there's going to be a difference between that and tripping on acid. Why would they all of a sudden be the exact same thing in lower doses? I mean, in the past, when I was experimenting with these compounds, I had tried microdosing LSD, mushrooms, mescaline, ibogaine, 2CB, DMT even, but that was more so just to get into like a meditative state. Different compounds I definitely found were better for different things. However, for this video, I'm going to be focusing on shrooms. I don't want to just branch too far out and make this way too long.
When you're looking for the mushroom,
the psilocybin
you
DMT machine.
Wow.
There are definitely some very real negative effects of microdosing, and all the effects that I'm going to be explaining to you are ones that I've personally felt myself. The main one being, microdosing can definitely cause an increase in your anxiety, especially if you accidentally take too much. It can sometimes be difficult to accurately know what dose you're taking. The potency of every batch of shrooms and every strain of shrooms varies so dramatically. However, even in just a microdose, even when you're just taking the right dose, they still can cause an increase in anxiety. And this is because while you're on it, you do feel more aware of your surroundings and your thoughts, and you definitely do feel a higher degree of connectedness with yourself, to the point where if you do have anxious thoughts, or if there's something you're worrying about, it is possible for that worry to be enhanced, and I did experience this. How this could be even worse is if you're someone who's prone to panic attacks. Now, other effects that I noticed was just feeling uncomfortable in my own skin, and I would say this was the #1 effect that kind of caused me to stop my experimentation with it. I always felt overly aware of my body. It caused some gastrointestinal distress as well. So the body effects for me were just very negative, which is crazy to think that you get body effects at such low doses, but I did.
And then you touch your testicles. You feel the mushroom's roots growing from them into the head of the penis, which clearly is a sign of the Psilocybin Dickinson.
But of course, what I think is probably the biggest negative effect of microdosing isn't really a direct physical effect. It's just the fact that a lot of the compounds that people commonly microdose are illegal in a lot of places. Now, there are legal alternatives that you can microdose, but even that can be a gray area because then you're getting into research chemicals. As for some negative effects, one of the big ones really is just becoming dependent on it. A lot of people who start taking them, they get to the point where it feels like they couldn't work without them. Now, this is what we call physical dependence, and it happens because these compounds, amphetamines specifically, are very mentally addictive. They can also make you feel good, and a lot of people get addicted to that boost it gives them. Long-term use, especially if you're using it daily, meaning you have a good chance of raising your dose, that can lead to, well, physical complications. It can be very challenging on your heart. You could definitely shorten your heart's life, and as such, probably your life. I mean, there's a slew of other side effects, like it can cause tightness in your chest, it can cause nausea, it can make you dizzy. I mean, there's tons of effects. I don't want to get into all of them. There's also the chance that if you're taking it for a very long period of time, because you've built a tolerance to it, you have to keep raising your dose higher and higher and higher. And as such, what that does is every time you take it, you're just totally depleting your brain of its dopamine reserves to the point where when you're not on the drug, your body has just become so dependent on always being on it, it no longer produces dopamine in the same way, meaning you feel pretty depressed, miserable, and low. That's like this withdrawal effect that can take a while to recover from, and some people do state that they've never been totally the same afterwards. What I can say is that in therapeutic doses, meaning when it's taken the way it's prescribed, and usually in the lower end doses, it hasn't really been proven to be, well, very dangerous, even not in the long term. The main danger that I can see is just because people get addicted to feeling good on it, and then they just start taking it more and more. But of course, not everyone is going to do that. The first and most noticeable, I guess, difference is while you're on amphetamine, you get this laser focus. You can find on shrooms that you are able to focus on things better, but it's not the same kind of forced feeling. It allows you to almost feel more calm and rational to the point where you're just so much more in tune with your brain. You can tell yourself to go do some work that you know needs to be done. And instead of like combating that and coming up with excuses why you don't want to do it, while you're on the microdose, your brain will be like, no, yeah, that's right. This is the best choice for me right now. All right, let's get to work. And also, it can make working more fun because you're having an abundance of creative thoughts. It allows you to take a new spin on whatever work you're doing, and it makes things more exciting. When you're more in tune with yourself, you don't have as much mental chatter going on either. Now, things like amphetamines can also make boring tasks seem more fun, but a lot of the time that's just because you can be so into something you're not really paying attention to how boring it might be, or also because you do get this euphoric boost from amphetamines that just make you feel good, and when you feel good, doing pretty much anything is a lot more fun than it usually is. Jeff was just saying he feels it.
I feel it. I feel it already. I was, as he was talking, I was like, I can feel my teeth, like I want to do something with them, like grind them. So I was like, oh yeah, I just took some amphetamine, is what that is.
As for shrooms, you don't necessarily get that same euphoric boost. I mean, there is a little bit of euphoria, I'm not gonna lie. Now, if I could pick one main effect, I would definitely say that the big difference really is just the creativity on mushrooms versus the creativity on this. However, you can feel more creative on amphetamine, especially if you don't have a tolerance to it yet. I noticed when I first started taking amphetamine, I felt more philosophical. However, as you get more used to taking the amphetamine, it definitely lessens to the point where now I don't really feel philosophical on it at all. Now, as for energy, some people can even feel energy on a low dose of amphetamine versus on a microdose of psilocybin. You're not going to get that same energy. I mean, I've never really felt energized on it. However, comparing the psilocybin to LSD, on a low dose of LSD, I have felt energy to the degree where it made me feel like I wanted to clean. It was actually very similar. A lot of people take things like speed and then they go clean their whole house. I took a microdose of acid before, and it was like I got the broom and I had to clean everything because while on the microdose I could see every little piece of dirt with so much more clarity because it increased my visual acuity, which is the next effect. Even on a microdose of shrooms, you can feel like you can see better. Your ability to pay attention to detail is just like increased and jumped up a few levels versus on amphetamine. Yeah, there's not going to be any increase in colors or visual acuity. I mean, everything pretty much will just look exactly the same as it always looks. This is actually one of the huge reasons why Albert Hofmann loved to microdose even in his old age. He said that he loved to go out on nature walks and it would just make his walks so much more exhilarating and exciting because, you know, doing shit like looking at plants is more fun. It's kind of going off topic because we're not really comparing what it's like to go for walks on a microdose versus on amphetamine. However, going for walks on amphetamine is pretty fun too, just because you've usually got a lot more energy.
Don't be a f***ing soft cock, mate.
Don't be a f***ing soft cock, mate.
Oi, so, what's going on?
What's going on?
Now, if you look online, you'll find that a lot of people compare microdosing to feeling like you are yourself, but just a little bit better. And I can see how that could be very attractive to anyone who's considering it. However, I've never really got these effects. In fact, for me personally, I discontinued all of my microdosing experiments because I personally found it to be far too distracting. It didn't really help me get my work done at all. But then again, I am diagnosed as ADHD, and when I started taking like a prescribed medication for it, and I'm not boosting this medication whatsoever. I would love it if microdosing worked better because I definitely believe that microdosing is safer, even short-term and long-term. What I mean is no one's ever died from taking mushrooms, at least not from, you know, the physical symptoms. No one's ever overdosed on them. No one's ever overdosed on LSD versus physicality-wise, you could definitely die from taking too much, and the strain it puts on your heart could cause long-term complications leading to death. So again, I'm not trying to push taking amphetamines. No. Do not take these unless you absolutely feel like you have to. I actually found it very unfortunate that microdosing wasn't as effective. Now, it was effective, again, for just outside-of-the-box thinking and allowing me to have fun nature walks.
Why are you throwing rocks at me? What did I do to you?
But just in terms of getting work done, it really didn't do it for me. However, at that time, I also wasn't practicing anything like meditation or taking time to quiet my mind and just sit in silence. I think if you paired something like meditation with the microdose, it could be better because I did find that my brain did race a little bit on it. And that's always a bad thing. Sometimes you need to be flowy. Sometimes you need to be able to bounce around from thought to thought. It could be great for brainstorming, for coming up with creative ideas. But in terms of just sitting down and like blasting through a shit ton of work or spending a whole evening studying, I do not see how microdosing could be very effective at all. But of course, there are some people who say that it is. And I don't want to take anything away from that. As I said, all these compounds affect each person in a different way. And I guess this video really is just me explaining my own experience with it, what other people experience, and comparing it to my experience with amphetamines. And when it comes to like a performance enhancer, I definitely get those effects from amphetamine a lot more than from a microdose. Now I know just saying that is going to piss some of you guys off out there, but I can't help the way that I feel. But if we're going to move beyond just using it as a tool for increased attention span and getting shit done, I did find that it was fun being on a microdose of mushrooms. For example, if you were out with friends and you were socializing, it definitely allowed you to feel, I don't know, just kind of funky. I really don't know how to describe it. It was like, you felt kind of good, kind of different, but not in an overwhelming way. And it made things like conversing feel like it flowed more freely. So I can see how it could have benefits. I just really fail to see how it's so beneficial with doing work. But there's also the fact that I did do these experiments a while ago. Perhaps if I tried microdosing again today, the effects would be different. And I'll look into doing a video on that in the future as soon as I figure out which legal substance I want to microdose. I'll think about it. I'll say that much. I will think about doing a microdose test to see if it's the same now as it was back then. So to conclude this video, I would definitely say that microdosing is effective for some people, and it can even be effective for people like me. However, you really can't compare microdosing to the traditional focus enhancers. Even when they do share effects like getting you to focus, as I've said, it's just in such a different way. It's still effective, just not comparable. If you're someone watching who's just gung-ho on trying this, then my best advice would be just to take it very small. Start with the smallest microdose. A lot of people say that you're not supposed to feel like you're on something at all, and the second you do, then you took too much. How do you describe thinking different? Like, that's a perceptual change. If you do decide to try microdosing, please be safe. Always start with small doses. And if you're going to microdose something like acid, you have to test your tabs. Not to get too much into this, but as you guys know, people sell fake tabs called NBOMEs or other drugs like DOMs, DOBs, and DOCs, and DOHs, bromo dragonflies. And you really want to test to make sure that you don't actually have one of these, because then you could potentially kill yourself. So you need to buy the Ehrlich reagent, and there is a link to a test kit in the video description. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that thumbs up button. Big shout out to everyone who's supporting me on Patreon. You're all amazing, and I owe my success or ability to just run this channel to you. If you support what I'm doing here and you want to back my mission, follow the link to Patreon. We are very close to my next huge milestone goal, and as I've said in like 4 or 5 videos now, when it's reached, I'm going to be doing some really cool animated trip simulation videos that I'm so excited for, and we're so close. So if you want to see some awesome trip simulations, pledge on Patreon, help us get there. And in case you're wondering, I need your money so I can hire some animators to do that, because I can't really do computer graphics. But anyway, I will see you guys all in the next video. Peace out, guys.